Hello and welcome to another episode of Motors for the Masses, and today I'm looking at a bike that I longed for since they first came out. So let's roll the intro and get cracking. Back in the late 90s, I had a yearning for the ultra sexy MV Agusta F4 Senna 1000R, but I had heard they were awful to own. So I'd resigned myself to thinking it was never going to happen. Then in 2014, the Brutale and Dragster new incarnations surfaced, and when the 2015 Dragster RR with its spoked wheels turned up, I knew that one day I would have one. But at that time, the £14,000 or so price tag was rather off-putting. Roll forward 7 years, the prices have come down a little, but not as much as you would think. And to be fair, £14,000 was a lot less than I thought. But anyway, even so, now I can just about afford one. So what do I have here? My 2015 MV Agusta Dragster 800 RR. So then let's take a look at some specs. Now I could go on for quite a while here as the list is plentiful, but I'll just stick to the main ones. 798cc water and oil cooled double overhead cam 12 valve triple engine, which produces 140 horsepower and 63 pounds-foot of torque. Now that does mean the top speed is 153 miles per hour. Not that quick, but it does have a 0 to 60 time of just 2.8 seconds. 6-speed slipper clutch gearbox with quick shifter up and down as standard. 6-injector Mikuni EFI system. Mikuni fly-by-wire throttle. 3 traction control levels, ABS levels. 4 different engine maps depending on how dangerous you want to be, and adjustable steering dampener as standard. Marzocchi or Marzocchi, however you want to pronounce it, 43mm adjustable upside down front forks. And a Sachs rear monoshock. Single-sided alloy rear swing arm, and 2 320mm front discs with Brembo 4-piston radial brakes on the front, and on the rear a single 220mm disc with a Brembo double-piston caliper. 120 front tyre and a standard 200 on the back. At the moment this has Pirelli Diablo Rosso 2s on it, and yes, I know I'm yet to lean it over, but we haven't really had the weather for it yet. You get a 16.5 litre fuel tank under this plastic cover, of course, with a range of about 130 miles, but let's say in real world conditions that's 100. The bike is just over 2 meters long and apparently 825 millimeters wide, but with the mirrors extended, it's actually 980 millimeters. That's quite a width, and it makes filtering quite difficult. You have to fold them in to filter, open them out, and off you go. The seat height is 811 millimeters, but it does only weigh 168 kilos. With the fluids in, that's about 175, which means if or when it breaks down, it's not that difficult to push. No. In comparison, my Speed Triple 2004 955i is about 213 kilos, so it's quite a bit lighter, which is why it's pretty quick. Now, looks-wise, I think the bike is absolutely stunning, beautiful from almost every angle, and I say almost because I'm not a fan of this sort of egg-shaped headlight. Kind of reminds me of the hand bots from Doctor Who, if you know what I mean. Other than that, I don't think there's anything looks-wise I just don't like about it. The exhausts are quieter than the engine, which is a little bit rattly as standard. That is normal, I did check, because it's sort of mechanical chattering going on in there. And I was looking at upgrading to a Sil Moto exhaust, but at £1,000 for that system, that can wait. So before we do go for a ride, let's talk about some of the issues of owning an MV Agusta. With an expensive bike comes expensiveness. Now, I paid just under £9,000 for this bike, which is a very good price. They are average between sort of £8,500 and £12,000, depending on the model you get. This one being the Dragster RR. They do the SCS version, the Pirelli version, and a few others. And also depends on the mileage. Now, this one's done 10,000 miles with a full service history, and it rides beautifully. There is a couple of issues with the bike, which is being sorted out under the warranty. After a couple of weeks, I had a lean angle sensor come up. Now, that ideally needs plugging in to be checked. The Texa diagnostic system is the best one for that. I have got a new lean angle sensor which has been sent through. That arrived yesterday, so that's being fitted very, very soon. The fork seals were replaced when I got the bike. One has started leaking again. On looking, it looks like possibly a stone chip has caused a tiny little graze on the stanchion. So that's going to have to be replaced. And they're about £4.5 million each. Now, they're over £1,000 each, I think, unfortunately. Again, comes with the style of bike and the style of forks that you use. I've also had a phase sensor error come up. No idea what that is. They're looking into it. And other than that, the bike rides beautifully. It doesn't make any difference to the way it rides. I mean, I have got a tiny weep from that stanchion, so we shall keep an eye on that. There's a small pool arriving, and when I ride it, I shall wipe that off because I don't want that to contaminate my brakes in any way. Other than that, I love riding it. However, with the expense of everything, it kind of puts into perspective the £2,000 Chinese bikes and their niggly issues. Because when niggly issues happen on this, they are expensive niggly issues. Because everything on it is expensive, and the bike is expensive. But would I change my mind if I had the chance? No, I wouldn't. And when I talk to you about the ride, I'll explain exactly why. Now, when I'm riding, I will talk about the 4 different modes it's got. I will ride in 2 different modes, not all 4, because there's not a massive difference between a couple of them. Other than that, there's a plane coming over. Can't see it. Oh, yes, I can. Parachutists. Bye. All right, let's go for a ride. Now, one thing I do want to point out, which is a little bit disappointing, is that the bike does not have a fuel gauge. It has a fuel light, that is it, but it does not have a fuel gauge. Now, apparently, on the previous versions of the MV Agusta, they did put a fuel gauge, but it was not very reliable and didn't work very well. So rather than fix it, they just took it off. Yes, brilliant. You charge that much money for the bike and you can't bother to fix the issue, so you just take it off. So yes, no fuel gauge. So you get a light and then you don't get very many miles until you've got to put some fuel in. I do say what comes with these mirrors sticking out like this is you get great visibility behind you. Fantastic visibility behind you, to be honest. Other than that, they're massive. Now I've got it in normal mode at the moment, and when I first got the bike they recommended I ride in sport mode because it's the best throughout the range, which is fine, but it makes it very jittery when you're doing round town speeds. It's like because it's very, very quick on the throttle. So it's a little bit jittery. You're still a tiny bit jittery in normal mode. But I don't want to put it in rain mode because apparently that's just really boring. Change the mode, you've got to push the start button, stroke map button, without the engine running. Other than that, the seat is very, very comfortable. It's contoured almost perfectly to my bum. And it does feel fantastic. The response you can feel is ready to go, really wants to. Now I tend to use the clutch at low speeds, but you don't have to, because I can just go into fifth quite happily, down into fourth quite happily without using the clutch. Now, because the bike is still new to me, I ride in traction control level 3 and the ABS set on 1. Traction control 2 apparently is the best one, and 1 if you're feeling very, very brave, but I just stick it in 3 and I'm happy with 3. I'm not an expert racer. Now, even though it's quite quiet, the exhausts are still quite loud when you're on the bike. I love that change gear. Dee, dee, dee. Not really necessary at this speeds. Still use the clutch quite happily. So there's 2 things here I can't do. I can't filter because the traffic is just quite bad, and I can't filter because my bike is too wide. But I love riding it. I love the looks it gets. I love the sound of it. I love the feel of it. The suspension is adjustable, but it actually feels quite good for me. I, on sport type bikes, do suffer a little bit from wrist failure, as in my wrist hurts. But I don't really get it on here. So then, what's the verdict? Well, I don't like the fact that it's almost a metre wide, 980 millimetres with these mirrors. I don't like the turning circle on it. It's like an 8-point turn. Very sports bike-esque, but you know, that's a small compromise, I don't mind that. I don't like how snatchy it can get in and around town. But I mean, again, that's just a minor thing. That all goes when you get out of the 30-mile-an-hour zones. That's not a problem at all. It is leery in sport mode. It just, when it gets up into the revs, it just goes really, really opens the revs up. As far as the normal mode's concerned, I'm perfectly happy with that until I'm really used to the bike. Well, I do find that it sticks very nicely. These tyres are brilliant. It does stick very nicely. When you open it up, even in normal mode, this thing wants to fly. Once it's warmed up and I can get it over and I can get used to how it handles in all scenarios, then I can stick it in sport mode. I'm under no illusion that I am some race expert, not at all. But it is lovely to ride. It's very comfortable. The seat, even though it's shaped the way it is, it's contoured perfectly for me. It's lovely. I did have a bit of a tank slapper. It went light on the front end as I pulled down the dual carriageway, but that was easy to move out of. Maybe a slight adjustment on the dampener will sort that out for me. Other than that, I love the gear change. It's so smooth, up and down, more so up. I tend to use the clutch as I come down, always have, just get used to it. Up until I bought this bike, my 2004 Speed Triple, my orange one, as you know, very loud, was my favourite bike. This one now is. I love the way it looks. Apart from that, it's just a bit eh. But other than that, I love the way the bike looks. I love the big fat 200 back tyre. I love the entire Italiano-ness of it. It sounds great, although it does need to be louder, and I will get that Silmoto exhaust. Just don't know when. I love the trellis frame on it, the dimensions and the way it is, apart from this width bit, is perfect. And it's just a beautiful bike to look at. Do I regret it with its little niggles? Not one little bit. I can live with those niggles because of what it is. You know, out of my 11 bikes that I own, it is by far the biggest baby. And I absolutely love it. So no, I don't regret it. Yes, it was a bit of money, but on the flip side, they're holding their money. And this bike, in comparison, seems to be around sort of 10 grand now. So they're possibly going up in value. Obviously, fluctuations in prices as things get older and demand and things like that. But it's going to hold its value a lot more than anything else I've got. But that's beside the point, because it's a bike that I wanted and I now have. And I'm so happy I made that decision. And that brings me to the end of this episode of Motors for the Masses. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll be back next time with something else. I don't know what. Could be more on the Mustang, could be another bike review. Oh, I'll tell you what I've got coming very, very soon. The new Moto Morini Escape 650. So stay tuned for that, because that is coming very, very soon. Won't say when, but it's coming very, very soon. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share this video as usual. If you want to support this channel, please do so by clicking on the Patreon link or our Facebook merchandise shop, and the links are in the description below. And so until next time, please ride and drive carefully, but have fun. I know I will. Bye-bye. Nice. Idiot.